need to find some consistency and have their young guys get a little bit older, and they're going to be just fine.
Sounds good. Hey, Scott, I'm going to throw my last question out at you. Who's going to win that crazy American League East? I mean, you got Baltimore, Yankees, Tampa Bay, Toronto, all within one game of each other. I mean, Boston, we pretty much can say at 7 games out is probably out of the talk. But who's going to win that crazy division in your mind?
You know, it's. I think that division can be won with whoever has the best July trade deadline experience. The Blue Jays, again, talking about getting pitching, that lineup is killer. They lead the major leagues in runs scored. If they, for my money, they have got to go out and get a starting pitcher, whether it's a Johnny Cueto, somebody like that. I mean, that division is there to be won, and the Blue Jays can win it, and they have the longest playoff drought of any team in any of the 4 major North American sports. You know, they last time they were in October, it was 1993 when they were winning it all. They haven't been back since. So I think they're in a great position. They can win it. I think depending on how, if they don't make a great move, right now I think the best balanced team is the Baltimore Orioles. They're not perfect, but I think if you look at the rotation, the bullpen, the lineup, I think that's the best balance. Toronto lacks pitching. Tampa Bay lacks hitting. The Yankees, I think, are a little short on pitching. And so that's why I say, Baltimore's not perfect, but I think they've got the best mix of all aspects of the game right now. So I would say the Orioles win the division, unless the Blue Jays pull off a coup at the trade deadline and line up a starting pitcher and maybe a relief pitcher. Then I think they can take the Orioles.
Yeah, when I look at the East, you look at the Yankees. They're a team that's pretty much held together by pretty much duct tape with the age of the team and the injuries and all that. Pretty much held together by duct tape. So you know how duct tape likes to wear out. So like you, I whoever has the best trade deadline, but I think Baltimore is probably at the top, and then Toronto that offense. But I want to say thanks for joining us. I know you got to go. Pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we can get you on in the future. I had a few more questions I would love to ask, but I don't know if we, it'll be tough to squeeze them in the limited time we have left. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys. Enjoyed it, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, have a great night, Scott.
Thank you.
You too.
Well, buddy, that was a great conversation with Scott Miller. He is a reporter for Bleacher-Report, and definitely some great insight there. So, what were your takes from some of the comments that he had to say tonight?
Well, I think the big take to take out of it, because I see on my Twitter feed often and my Facebook feed quite often, and some groups that I'm in on Facebook regarding the Brewers, I think it's important to remember that it is still early. It is only July 1st, July 2nd, getting closer to July 2nd by you, but it's still July 1st, even though it feels like it's October. It's still July 1st, and we still got a ways to go until the deadline, and teams are still posturing. So I know it doesn't look good that the Brewers are going to do what a lot of Brewer fans want them to do, which is go through a teardown and rebuild. But it's still early. You still got 30 days until the non-waiver trade deadline. So, you just got to be patient. You got to be patient and know that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But unfortunately, for the Brewers' sake, Ramirez's contract's going to be tough to take on, plus he's having a real down year. I'm surprised Kyle Loesch and Matt Garza are on DL with neck strains, how often they watch the ball fly out of the ballpark. And Ryan Braun's contract's impossible to move. So if the Brewers do want to stock the farm system, they're going to have to trade guys like Segura, Lucroy, and Gomez. So I think that's something to really look at. And then it's crazy what's going on in Anaheim right now and for the Angels. It's just crazy with all that chaos, is what he was saying. And, I'm not surprised the owner took the side of Mike Scioscia, but in a way it's going to be very interesting when they decide to hire the new GM, because whoever they hire is going to go in there knowing that Mike Scioscia has more power than the general manager. So what are some things you took out of it?
Yeah, it was interesting to hear Scott talk about the situation in Anaheim, because definitely something that you and I probably would have talked about on our show, and I agree with you. What went down there? Who's going to want that job now? I mean, you look at it, you're going in and basically you're at the hands of everyone else. You're just a face, and you pretty much need approval now of everyone in the organization to be successful. And everybody's you can't put down your fist as a GM, because it's clear where the ownership and the loyalty lie, and it lies with Mike Scioscia and the manager. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. That is a mess there. I'm not saying that Dipoto was right for what he did either. There are times, and I've been in management, you don't have to be friends with people you work with, but you've got to find a way to have a professional relationship. And this meeting that he had with players, honestly, I think he stabbed himself right there. He put himself in a bad situation by doing that. When you go into a situation with a group of players that play their heart out for a manager, the only way that I would recommend doing that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll get your thoughts on it too, but if I'm a GM, why would I call a players' meeting if there's no problem and no tension between a manager and the players? Because at that point, you're fighting an uphill battle. You're trying to find one or two players to make that team turn on the manager. Really, that's what I see happening. I may be totally wrong in that, but to call a meeting when you've got players that like to play for Mike Scioscia, I don't think there's a question there. And you're going in there and you're trying to say that he's not doing the right things, I mean, you're not going to win that battle. So what are your thoughts on him calling a meeting like that and kind of going around Mike Scioscia directly to the players, good or bad on his part?
Well, it was very stupid on his part to call that meeting. As you just said, the players love Scioscia, and you're going to do a meeting like that. The only thing I could see you trying to do is you're trying to make a rift between the manager and the player, which is stupid also, because the players love him. They love Scioscia. Scioscia's been there forever. It seems like he's been there, at least since the Hoover administration. But they love Scioscia, and that was a huge mistake. So I don't know what he was thinking. That's why he's out of a job, and it probably won't take long for him to find a job someplace else. But yeah, just stupid move to do. And I guess the one thing, I'm kind of on the fence. Another thing I took out, I'm kind of on the fence on the Astros, because I just look at the Astros as they lead the league in being struck out, and they lead the league in home runs. And an offense that relies on home runs that much just always concerns me. But I do think they might have enough to stay in the lead of the division. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. But for Brewer fans, I'm sure hearing him talk about building up the big lead early, I'm sure we're kind of crying in our pillows a little bit, because the Brewers built up this huge lead in April and beginning part of May, and then pretty much collapsed the rest of the way. But speaking of Brewers, Troy, you look at the Brewers; they are officially on a winning streak. They're now on their first 4-game winning streak that's since it seems like since the Titanic sunk. It's actually since August, but the way they're playing, it seems it's been that long since they've had a 4-game winning streak. And if the Brewers can beat the Phillies tomorrow, they get their first sweep in God knows how long, probably since Jesus walked the earth. It seems like it's been that long since they've had any kind of sustained success on the field.
Yeah, it's been a while, buddy. I can't remember, and I know I'm getting old and my memory goes fast, but my memory's okay, but I can't remember the last sweep they had, and I certainly can't remember the last 4-game winning streak. It's been one of those seasons to forget. Honestly, I want it. His take on the Brewers are kind of things that you and I have talked about. Some of the names that got thrown out there. Who knows what's going to happen? We talked about who's untouchable with the Brewers, and right now, the problem, and you mentioned it a little bit ago, right after Scott got off the air, is the problem the Brewers are going to have moving players are the contracts, and that's going to be a big part of it. So we'll see what happens as they move forward here through the trade deadline. But I definitely, think the Brewers will be willing to listen to trade offers from any teams that go out there, and that's why I wanted to get Scott's opinion on Ryan Braun. I know people are going to say he's the face of the franchise and so on and so forth, but to get a person that doesn't have a loyalty to the Brewers, to have him say kind of the things that we've said, that he hasn't been the same player since the suspension. Now, I'm not saying that is all because of the PED use. He's had a lot of injuries. He's been on stints on the DL, but he where he's at, he's still a very productive player. And if there was ever a time to move Ryan Braun, if you're Milwaukee, now might be the time if somebody wants to nibble on that a little bit. So we'll see what happens moving forward. Like you said, I don't see him moving Gomez or Lucroy at this point.
Well, Gomez,
and I know
I see them moving. Gomez, I see them moving because they can't. He has a year left on his contract after this year, and he's making like $9 million, I believe. And when he's a free agent, that's probably going to double. So they won't be able to afford him. So I think it's better to move him now or next season than to keep him. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I've always been, I would move Gomez. Lucroy is the one I would move because you need a marketable face.
Yeah, I can agree with you there. The other name, though, and the one I hope they don't move either, is Segura. I like Gene Segura, but he's a guy when you're looking at a shortstop that has some potential and teams might look at. Segura's name might come up. I don't want them to move him because I think he could be a good player for the Brewers. But again, they're in a situation right now where they've got to look out for the future. And you and I have talked about that. Do you want to, do you want to have success in 1 year, or do you want to have success over the long haul like the St. Louis Cardinals? I know that's a name Brewer fans hate to hear, but you've got to give them credit. I mean, like you said, they could throw, a team of misfits out there and still find a way to win. Their organization does it well, and that's the kind of success that Milwaukee wants. And hopefully that's what they're going to be looking at right now when teams are knocking on the door saying, "Hey, I need a starting pitcher. Hey, I need this player." And we don't want them to give away the farm, of course. But you and I are in agreement on this. We're okay with them making moves if it benefits the organization in the long haul. But I would hate to see Segura go if he goes, because I like him and I think he can be a solid player. But again, when I'm saying this, that means that other teams probably have the same thought, and if they're looking for a shortstop to make a playoff run, his name may come up, and they may bait the hook well enough for the Brewers to make that move. But I'd hate to see him go. What do you think about Gene?
Yeah.
Would you like to see him stay, or go ahead?
I would hate to see John Segura go. I would definitely hate to see him go. But at the same time, you look at the Brewers farm system, and they're fairly loaded at shortstop, especially as a 20-year-old by the name of Orlando Arcia. He's a shortstop. He's currently down in Biloxi batting .311, on base at .353, slugging .449, OPS .802. And he's a guy that's, I know minors doesn't necessarily translate to the majors, but he's a guy that's just been tearing it up in the minor league level right now, just completely kicking butt. And he's played in He's got a career .282 average in minor league, and he's a guy that could probably